welcome to another episode of the show. I'm your host, Ingi Kim, founder of Narrative, a holding company that invests in acquiring businesses. I'm joined today by my co-host Calvin, who
Hey
plays
guys.
yeah who plays a key role in our ecosystem. And great to have you always, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Let's just get straight to the podcast. Before we get into the product, we would like to learn more about today's guest, Franklin. Franklin, can you tell us more about yourself, your team, and what you were doing before building Liquid?
Absolutely. I've lived in the United States my whole life, so I'm a burger. I've been in the US this whole time. I grew up near Washington, D.C., which is the capital of America. I went to school at Harvard University where I studied math. Was really, really enjoyed math competitions, was actually Harvard's top scorer on the Putnam twice. The Putnam is the main collegiate math competition. So I did that, and after I did that, I went to Two Sigma where I worked on trading futures. I was there for about 2.5 years. Near the end, I was appointed chief AI scientist of systematic macro.
Wow.
My team is people with similar backgrounds to me. So I did this summer program in high school called the Research Science Institute. It's a program held at MIT where a bunch of high schoolers come around to go do some science research. And so some of those people work with me to this day.
That's very impressive. I'm quite interested about like your background. So most people with your background, like Harvard, quantitative finance, like they tend to stay in TradFi. But like, what was the story of choosing the path of like DeFi, and what ultimately made you and your team build Liquid as it is today?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. Obviously, if you look at my resume, it's like, yeah, why didn't this guy stay in TradFi? I think the answer is that whenever someone does something in life, there's always like some deep reason where they felt emotionally that they had to do something, right? It's not because like some calculation or whatever. It's because they felt like they had to do something. And for a long time, I like have, followed the crypto space and everything. But there was one experience that really, really stuck out. So in about 2023, I was at Two Sigma and I was looking at like gold, and I was like, interesting, like how does more gold get produced? And the answer is like gold gets dug out of the ground and then it gets sold, and stuff like that. And a thing that was interesting to me at the time was the concept that there were all these asteroids out in space that have more gold than is available on Earth. And so if one day those asteroids could arrive to Earth, like there would suddenly be a lot of gold in the world. And that would be, and as you know, when a lot of supply unlocks, that tends to be very bad for the price of an asset. And then I was like, okay, what about Bitcoin? And I had studied crypto, in some depth before I actually wrote a research paper about it. But one thing that suddenly hit me at that moment was that, like, if we ever get really good at traveling through space, we might be able to get more gold. But no one can ever make more Bitcoin. That just seemed like so amazing to me, right? Like, one reason why things can last, things that last tend to be able to last more. This is called Lindy's law in common parlance. And Bitcoin, in some ways, was going to be the thing that could last the longest. So then I was like, oh, I want to put a bunch of money into Bitcoin, right? Like, what else would you think? And then, so I took most of the money I had in the time and I put all of it into Bitcoin. And then, like, it went up. This was like in 2023. I think Bitcoin was at like $30,000-$40,000. But it didn't actually make that much of a difference to me, because at the time, like, I was a guy who had just kind of graduated and like was starting his first job. Like, it didn't really make a difference, right? What I wanted was to get leveraged exposure to Bitcoin, right? Because I knew Bitcoin was going to go, like, I just knew like this is going to go up. And every day, all I could see was Bitcoin going up more and more. and like, Bitcoin goes up 10%, I was up 10%. That's great, but I didn't have much money at the time. So I was like, man, I really wish I could buy this with leverage. So one thing is like, oh, go buy a Bitcoin future, right? Those exist. They're kind of a mess to, like, at least at 2 Sigma, like I had to follow like very specific stringent like guidelines on this. Like, could I trade them? Like, I would have to roll them. They were just so annoying, right? All I wanted to do was buy like Bitcoin times 3, right? And like, I could not do that. And that felt really, really difficult to me. And, it's a very tough experience. Like, you have this and you just see Bitcoin going up more and more, and you're just sitting there powerless, right? And so then, in fact, I think this is actually a bigger problem in crypto writ large. Like, people want bigger returns, so they end up turning to meme coins, but like, meme coins have no value, right? Like, everyone who uses meme coins ends up just losing all their money, other than a few insiders who manage to like corner most of the supply. And like, I think people are pushing to meme coins because they have no other way to like earn potentially like huge returns, right? And so that was when like perpetual futures came, and like and I was like, wow, these things are really, really cool. We should go do some stuff with them, right? And then, but most of the people at crypto were like super, super shady. I was like, I really don't want to touch any of these people, right? Like, it's just the case. Until I saw like Jeff do this. Like, in fact, Jeff actually asked me a while ago, like, do you want to work here? And I didn't quite understand what it was at the time. I was like, this is crypto. Like, I don't know, it's a little scary, right? But that moment like had a lot of like, that moment meant a lot to me. And I was like, you know what? Like, I saw the success of Hyperliquid later, right? In like November 2024 with their TGE. I was like, you know what I want to do? Like, I want to make sure that everyone in the world, that no one in the world has to like have the same suffering that I did. Everyone in the world should get to like trade Bitcoin with leverage, or just trade things in general with leverage. And how do you do that, right? Like, at the time, Hyperliquid had no mobile interface. So I was like, I am going to make the best mobile app for Hyperliquid. And since then, I think Liquid's like has gone to be something quite beyond just a Hyperliquid mobile app. But that was the reason why I started Liquid. And everything else, I think, afterwards came very naturally once there's that initial spark.
What an interesting story, like from space, gold, and to like having intrinsic value for Bitcoin, but also having access to a lot of more opportunities like leverage. I think that would resonate a lot with our Korean audiences because, like, especially they are famous for loving using leverage. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that amazing story. And before we jump into the details, I also want to touch on like the basics. So like my mother always asks me like where she could learn about crypto, but I find it very hard to answer since there's not many sources these days that are both credible and easy, especially in crypto. So it's our first time actually inviting a project from a trading platform. So I think it's a great opportunity to start from zero. So could you first give us a one-liner for what you're building so we can break it down one by one from there?
Yeah, so crypto lets you trade so Liquid lets you trade anything, anywhere, anytime. So you
Yeah,
want to go through each of these?
for sure, for sure. So I've looked through the apps. So you guys have like perp spot and like prediction market, and I was quite interested in the perps part. So like when someone on Upbit on or Bithum buys Bitcoin, for example, they actually own the Bitcoin. That's like how spot works. But the same goes for trading equity on a stock market. But what about like perpetuals? Like what is a perpetual contract? And why would a trader want to use one instead of like just buying the asset?
So I think the fundamental reason why you would want to use a perpetual future is so that you can get leverage exposure. If that wasn't the case, like, that's like the number one reason. There's also a secondary reason, which is about as big, which is that if you want to bet against the price of Bitcoin, futures are probably the most natural way to do that. So if you want to bet against the price of Bitcoin, futures are the most natural way to do that. Traditionally, if you want to short an asset, you have to borrow it and then sell it and then promise to redeliver. This is kind of a mess, right? Like, I don't think the banks have figured it out to this day, how to like let you short stocks in like the right way. They do it with prime brokers. They try to do all this like craziness. Like the system makes no sense. Like shorting stocks is kind of a mess. And like futures let you do this in a more natural way. So that's, I think, the appeal of perpetual futures.
Got it. So a way to hedge or go against Bitcoin or like trading these crypto or like tokenized assets for sure. So what about like the on-chain aspect? Like, although the adoption rate of like self-custodial wallets have increased a lot over the years, especially in Korea, most people still prefer to use central exchanges over on-chain platforms. So why would someone want to trade this on a on-chain platform instead of just using like a central exchange like Upbit, Bithum, or Binance?
Thanks. I think this is a question that for a long time I never quite understood. And this is why I wasn't in crypto, because I'm like, what's the point of all this, right? Like, I have an Excel sheet. Why do I need Bitcoin, right? Like, Bitcoin is just a ledger. I can have a ledger too. In a single word, the answer to your question is that trading on a DEX is much less fragile than trading on a CEX. Now, what does that mean? I think when people use like an exchange, they believe that they own some coins and or assets and they can trade them for other assets, right? That's like what you think is going on. And like on a DEX, this is genuinely true. Let me explain to you how a CEX works. A CEX also looks like a place, you log on to Binance.com or Upbit.com and you put in some money and then you buy some coins and then you can like sell the coins and then maybe you've made something, maybe you've lost something, I don't know. And then, that's what Upbit and Bithum are like. The issue is that I think it's important to break down what this looks like at a very nuts and bolts level, right? It's not just, like I'm going to go here, I'm going to go make some trades. What happens when you deposit into a CEX like Upbit or Binance is essentially you send some money into the exchange's bank account, right? I send some money to Binance's like account or Upbit's account, and then it says, okay, like it makes an IOU for some assets. It's like, oh, okay, like, it writes down on a sheet of paper, like, okay, like we owe Franklin like $5 or something like that. Like I put in $5, they say I owe Franklin $5. And like, I think when you put it this way, you start seeing that this is a very, very fragile thing, right? Here are a few things that could go wrong, and these aren't even really like hypothetical. Okay, for one, someone could just lose the ledger of IOUs, right? Because like it's written somewhere that you owe Franklin $5, but like, what if the piece of paper got burned, or like you lost it, or like there was a crash, right? Like my money is gone. What if there's a hack, like there was on Upbit a while ago? Like, to be clear, I don't mean any offense to them, but like if the assets are gone, like you can't withdraw them anymore, right? Because they're in that person's account. That creates a problem, right? Because like they're in Upbit's account. So if Upbit lost the money, then there's no coins that I can get anymore, right? When Bithum gave out all this like 100 Bitcoin, like, sorry, I really don't want to be picking on these companies. I really respect what they've done for the space, and I recognize that they are like pretty important to the narrative, but it's important to acknowledge their real limitations, right? When they accidentally gave out all this Bitcoin to like people, it's like, do I actually have it? Do I not have it? Like, it's a disaster, right? So as you can see, like a CEX is a very, very fragile thing that's sort of held together by the illusion that you have it, right? And like that's fine, right? Like I'm not going to say that everything should be decentralized. Like some things should actually be centralized, and like there are cases in which this system actually makes sense. It's sort of how the real economy can work, right? Like you put money into this bank and the bank lends it out to other people. The money is never in the bank, and this keeps like the economy going. Like there are some cases in which that's important, right? But for trading, ideally you want to control your assets, right? A further example of how this distinction can really hurt is that think about how Upbit like sort of makes money and what that looks like if you really go to the nuts and bolts level, right? I put some money in Upbit's bank account, right? And Upbit is like, oh, okay, now you own some, now you don't own it, and then like it gets moved around, right? And when they earn fees, the fees go into like, you know, the Upbit like management account. It goes from the Upbit company account to the Upbit management account. And, you know, there are things that can happen here which are very, very not transparent, right? I don't know how much money is actually being moved into like Upbit's management account. Like, what if Upbit decided to just take all the money from the like customer account and move it all into the management account, right? Then like, how am I going to be able to withdraw any money? Like, it's not mine anymore. And like, this isn't even hypothetical. This is exactly the story of FTX, right? They took some customer funds and just used it themselves. Like, there's another exchange in the US called MF Global, which did the exact same thing. It's especially bad for derivatives exchanges. For centralized exchanges, they can do like a proof of reserves and be like, oh, well, you know, we own these addresses, like, you know, the money can't really be lost. For derivatives exchange, like, the only things that are being traded are like, oh, this guy owns some Bitcoin, is like long Bitcoin against this other dude. And like, that could just like all be lost, right? A lot of derivatives exchanges just blow up because like the owners just take out all the money and then the customers have no money left. This happens a lot. And I think like it's just really unacceptable. Like when I started, all I wanted to do was to bring like leverage Bitcoin to everyone. But over time I've discovered, like, for example, in India has like weird restrictions on foreign exchange trading. And it ends up being the case that a lot of Indian companies are just like, you know, you trade some foreign exchange on them and you deposit your money into their bank account. And then you say, oh, I'm long some foreign exchange, I'm long some euros or whatever. And then like they just run away with the money. And if you win and you withdraw, there's no money left. This actually happens a lot. Like, people want derivatives. The standard model of derivatives exchanges does not really work that well when the people running them can kind of just abscond with the money. So fundamentally, like like for the standard derivatives exchange to work, there needs to be a lot of trust between you and the exchange person, everything, right? Whereas if you do it on a DEX, you don't need to trust me, right? You could think I'm like the worst person in the world. You could think I'm like an evil person. And you can be confident that if you trade on Liquid, I won't run away with your money. Like, this is better than like FDIC insurance or like bank insurance. The money is definitely yours. I couldn't steal it even if I wanted to, and I can prove that. And I think for derivatives exchanges, that's extremely important.
Yeah, both happen. Both happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so now that we've touched with the basics, we want to dive deeper into Liquid, like what makes it really different. So first of all, like Liquid connects to Hyperliquid, Lighter, Ostium, and like routes trades across all of them from one interface. Like why does this matter? And if Hyperliquid already has great liquidity, why wouldn't I just use Hyperliquid directly?
That's a great question. I think the answer is like kind of subtle. The core issue is that the perps are not fungible, okay? Like a perp on Hyperliquid is not really the same as a perp on Lighter, is not the same as a perp on Ostium. It's not the same with coins. Like Bitcoin here and there and whatever, Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. A Bitcoin perp is not really fungible. For example, on Lighter, the liquidations are determined based on the oracle. On Hyperliquid, they're based on like the order book itself. These are different mechanisms, and you know, it doesn't quite work out that like they're all equivalent, right? And these subtle differences lead to real differences when trading. Say that you're trading equity perps, right? Hyperliquid, Ostium, Lighter all support equity perps now. Ostium equity perps are structured differently than Hyperliquid ones. Hyperliquid equity perps are 24/7. Ostium equity perps follow like trading hours. They only follow the 9 to 5 p.m. trading hours. You might be like, okay, like Ostium sounds bad, like it's not available 24/7, like Why would you have Ostium perps if they're not available 24/7? The answer is that you get certain guarantees when you're not 24/7, right? So like when earnings happen, there tends to be very, very thin liquidity, right? So the price will move around a lot, right? Same with the weekends. So if you're trading on Hyperliquid, your equity perps might frequently get liquidated. In fact, maybe you guys can pull this up. There's an incident where CL got liquidated on a bunch of Amazon stock because it like traded weirdly in like the weekend. So there are real differences between these perps, right? Like they actually just all sort of, they have different properties. On lighter or on Ostium, you can get a 100x levered S&P perp. You can't do this on Hyperliquid because Hyperliquid lets you trade over the weekend. Ostium obeys the market hours and is able to give you more leverage as a result. Like you can get 100x leverage on Ostium. You can't do that on Hyperliquid, and it's because of like differences in structure. So I think there are real differences. The second thing is that sometimes you want to just try out all of these, right? Like you might want to try out Hyperliquid, but maybe you think the fees are too high, so you can trade on lighter, or maybe you want to trade some like things that are only on Ostium. So by letting you have them all in one place, it's easier to manage.
So yeah, I think most of our audience wouldn't have known like the details of like the difference between these trading platforms. So I think we have a better understanding why we need to aggregate all of these and how that enhances the experience. So what are some unique features you'd say or advantages of using Liquid compared to other like aggregator trading platforms or just trading platforms in general?
Yeah, so Liquid has like a mobile app. This is like one thing we do, and we also have like put a lot of care into like unifying the interface across every single exchange. Like there's certain things on Ostium, there's certain things on Lighter that, and there's certain things on Hyperliquid we sort of abstract away from you because we think they're like confusing. Also eventually, like the general idea, right, is that if you have money on Liquid, you can do as many things as possible with it. You can do, we want to let you do, the point of being like a super app is that you can do as many things with your money that you can do as many things with your money as you can anywhere else, and hopefully it's the place where you can do the most different things with your money, right? So event contracts, we have those. Like perps, we have those. Like savings, we'll have those. Like, you know, spending, we'll have those. So ultimately the reason you should use Liquid is because we'll just have more and more functionality than everyone else, right? And fundamentally, like we can kind of abstract away some of the blockchain stuff. So unless you really try on Liquid, you can basically get away without even looking at any wallet addresses. So if you don't want to deal with a wallet address, you know, you can use Liquid, you can deposit from your bank or Apple Pay, and you can start trading, and you never have to worry about like a wallet address. So like we also abstract away a lot of the things that are very crypto native away from the app. And I think a lot of users are like afraid to touch things that are too crypto coded. So by sort of abstracting away the crypto, we show them that like this product is amazing, and like, you know, you don't have to worry about the crypto. Because I think a lot of people, when they see what Liquid can do, they're like, this is so cool. But if I told them this is a crypto app, they'd be like, no, we don't want to use that. So I think it lets people experience the power of DeFi without being associated too strongly with a crypto brand.
Yeah, so as a trader myself, I would say that that's a very huge advantage. Like I wouldn't want to move across like platforms if I just learn about a single platform and be able to do everything. That's like pretty amazing. And I think that's also the reason why Toss, a all-in-one TradFi app in Korea, is also very popular. So I think the same will apply for like crypto trading platforms as well. So once people are really used to the Liquid platform, they will see how great it is. And I found your mission very interesting. So like what bringing the cost of conviction to zero. So like what does this actually mean, and how does Liquid achieve that?
Yeah, so I think I've like sort of made it clear that people want leverage because it lets them get higher returns, right? And the typical way people get leverage now is by using options, right? You are probably familiar with these. And like options are, in my opinion, a horrible instrument. They charge extremely high fees. To give you a sense as to how bad this is, you guys probably know what Jane Street is, right? You heard about the Jane Street Indian options case?
Yeah,
One way to think about this is that all of those fees that that people use on options all went straight to Jane Street. Like, to give you a sense as to the scale of like how much people pay to take leverage positions, all of that money in options goes to these like options market makers. And the options market makers are so big and make so much money. Almost all the most talented people from my year of college and a few years below, like, all go into these quant trading firms. In my opinion, this is almost like a waste of talent. Like, it's just that retail pays so much to get leverage that it like has made so many billionaires in the US just by like providing that leverage to them through options. And retail traders, I feel really, really bad for them. They have to pay such high costs. Perpetual futures cost them much, much less in fees than options do. Because options are super, super fragmented and they're super complicated. And so when retail is trading them, they tend to lose a lot. Furthermore, it's pretty difficult to provide liquidity for options. Like, you have to have very like specific rights in order to like be an options market maker. Like, I cannot just become an options market maker. There's a lot of rules on who can become an options market maker due to the way options are kind of set up. In a world in which everyone can use perpetual futures, they can keep more of their money and less will go to Jane Street.
makes sense. Like, I have a couple of friends that trade in the millions, and like when I see their like how much fees they've spent, it's like crazy. So for sure, like for them, like saving as much fees, like it makes a much better trading experience for sure. And I hope I think Liquid enables that very well. And one of the major bullish points from like retail traders' perspective are, I'd say, the backers. Like Liquid raised $6.7 million seed round led by Paradigm.
7.6.
Yeah, 7.6. Sorry about that. 7.6 million seed round led by Paradigm and General Catalyst with angels from Coinbase and Lighter, like huge names. So what did you have to show them to get that conviction, and how long did it take to get from the first conversation to the signed term sheet?
It's a pretty funny story. So a while ago, I like got a stylist, right? And my stylist, she picked out some clothes for me, and they were pretty cool clothes. But where this gets really interesting is that this stylist was also working with Fred Ursum, who is the co-founder of Coinbase and the co-founder of Paradigm, right? And at one point, my stylist, she, being a stylist is not the only thing she does. She was actually a friend of mine from school. I was like, hey, like, I'm thinking about starting a company. Like, what do you think I should do? He's like, you should talk to Paradigm. And like, I just talked to Fred through my stylist. And then I pitched them this vision, which was like, look, like, we want to bring perpetual futures to everyone because they're just clearly the best way to like trade a conviction, right? And once they heard that, they basically like gave me a term sheet like in a few days, like 2 days after that, I think. And my stylist was about to start her job at General Catalyst. I don't quite remember if she had started at the time, but she basically showed it to General Catalyst, and General Catalyst filled out the round. So I think it only took like about a week. Yeah.
That's like very quick compared to like how other fundraisings happen. Like they tend to take like months, but in your case, like weeks, days. That's so amazing. So we'd like to move on to the strategy side of Liquid. So like I'd say the competition amongst like trading platforms is like super fierce, as there are like tons of projects entering the market these days. So what is your primary target, And can you also share some like go-to-market strategies that you've been using to attract more users and volume?
Yeah, that makes sense. I acknowledge that there are a lot of companies that are doing trading platforms. I think that the ICP is actually kind of subtle. Like, Liquid, by not being an exchange, has slightly different incentives from that of being an exchange. An exchange essentially cares just about deposits, right? They just want as much money to be in their bank account as possible. But what we care about most is getting the best traders in the world onto Liquid. Because fundamentally, Liquid is not taking the opposite side of these trades. So when Liquid's users win, then Liquid wins as well. The best way to get a user to stay on your platform for a long time is for them to keep making more and more and more money, right? As a result, our incentives are purely for our users to win. We are always rooting for our users to win. That matters to us more than anything else. And I think it shows in our incentives. So the typical way that someone who is good at trading, so let me take a step back here and like say the most important problem in the world, I think, is like capital allocation, right? Figuring out what things get built. The allocation of capital is probably the most important thing in the world. And how can someone allocate a bunch of capital? How does someone get to be in the position where they get to allocate a bunch of dollars? As I've seen from my experience in TradFi, it's often a bunch of people who went to the right schools, have the right names, have the right connections. Those are the people who can raise funds and make a bunch of money. But like, what are the chances that the best people in the world at capital allocation are exactly that group of people? Like, probably not, right? I'm reminded of a story of the mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan, one of the greatest mathematicians in the world. What was he doing? He was in India working for a grocery store doing the books. And then another mathematician came and discovered he was like the greatest mathematician ever, brought him back to India, brought him back to the UK. In like 5 years, he became like the greatest mathematician in the world. So chances are the best person in the world at capital allocation did not go to Harvard, as much as I wish they did, right? And fundamentally, the real users we want are like the best traders in the world. Like, I believe that there is a Ramanujan out there, right, of finance, but he's not going to be discovered the normal way. If he's trading stocks and he makes like 10% a year, right, which is pretty good, or 20% a year, which is even better, for 30 years, he'll make like, 237x over 30 years. But if his starting base is small, he's never going to make a ton of money. Instead, through Liquid, by getting access to leverage, he could easily make thousands of times his money in 1 year, because Liquid offers him so much leverage. And so I would say my ideal user is the Ramanujan of finance, like the best trader out there. I don't care how much money you have. If you are good at trading, you can quickly turn it into a ton of money. And that's who I'm doing this for. That's why I think Liquid doesn't just focus on core markets. Like, if we were just focusing on core markets, we just stay here, right? We do all kinds of things. One of the proudest stats that I have is that Liquid has users in 120 different countries. Countries that I've never even heard of, like French colonies and like just really all sorts of countries around. Because my ideal user is the next Ramanujan of finance.
Next, Ramanujan of finance. That's very fancy. And what I really liked about what you said is like you guys profit when the traders profit. So like you guys win together. And I think that should be your second slogan. So as Liquid is aiming to become the ultimate financial super app, like integrating other primitives such as prediction markets, what are some exciting updates that users can expect in the future?
Absolutely. So one of the clearer things that's going to get rolled out pretty soon is the ability to like spend your profits. There's a joke in crypto that people often round trip their profits. And the reason of that is because like it's a little annoying sometimes to withdraw, and exchanges don't really want you to withdraw and stuff like that. So if you make like a bunch of money trading, like I think you should get to enjoy that, right? You should spend. So we're going to make it super easy to spend your stable coins. So we're going to release the Liquid card, I think, in about a month or so. So there's going to be that. We also, because our model works on you winning because we want to win, we win when you win, right? Not like a typical exchange. So one thing that means is that we will be rolling out a bunch of things to help you win more, right? So typical exchange will just tell you like, hey, please keep trading, please keep trading, please keep trading. Like if we think you shouldn't be doing a trade, like we won't have you do that. This is one reason why like Liquid will never have meme coins, like other than the perps that we support, because I fundamentally don't want to be in a business where like you only win when your users lose. I want to be in a business where we win and the users win. And we win only when the users win. So we'll be rolling out some things to really level up your trading. We have some social features. So soon we will release this thing where we will release a leaderboard where you can see the people on the leaderboard. So I think I'm like first or second place on the leaderboard right now. So you'll be able to copy my trades. So there's like a social element where it's like, okay, if you want to follow smart money, you can do so on Liquid, which I think is really, really important, right? Because like in the typical world, like no one, like people talk about their trades in group chats, but you never know if that person's actually trading or if they're just LARPing, right? So we're going to release a bunch of social features. We're going to release a few safety features. So there's a feature on Lighter where when your margin on an isolated position hits like 50%, all of your money is gone. It's not like 0%, it's 50%. All of your money gets taken away from you. This actually is needed for Lighter because this way the money can go into LLP. But we don't want you to do that, right? Like we don't want you to lose all your money when you're at 50% margin. Like what? Like that's such a weird experience. So this is a pretty easy thing to fix. Like we'll put a stop loss in front of your like right in front of the liquidation price. So you get to keep 50% of your money instead of losing all of it. Adding safety features like this will build user trust and also sort of differentiates us. Because like trading on Liquid will become strictly more profitable than trading on Lighter. So we think that if the reason people trade is to make profits, you know, they should come to us. A fun fact is that on Lighter, we don't charge any additional fees at all because Lighter is 0 fees. So we want to keep that spirit. And Robinhood sort of became one of the greatest companies in the world by being like a 0 fee app. So we are also a 0 fee app.
I really like that and respect that you're adding a lot of features that help the users have a better trading experience, and your incentives are aligned with what the traders are doing as well. And also for like using the credits within your account as like a card. I think that's also a very good idea. Like traders like me, they typically have like 100K in their trading account, but they usually have like $100 in their actual card. So every time you want to spend something, you have to like on ramp, off ramp, and it's very cumbersome. So I think I would also love to try to use the Liquid card as well. So as we come to an end, like I want to ask a few more like personal questions as well. So what's like the kindest thing that
Irving, before we go to closing statement, I'd love to ask one more question. Is it okay?
oh we're not at the end yet. I was
So,
just saying like
okay, so you are going to ask the 13 what,
yeah,
yeah. Let me ask one before this question.
sure.
I'm just curious. Can you share any traction numbers? What's your users numbers or volume or something like that?
Yeah, so we have about 30,000 users. We have $3 billion in volume, and we have 100 different countries. For NAT that launched in July,
Yeah,
120 countries.
yeah, impressive already. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, I think that's the one part. And one other part, you mentioned the Liquid is targeting the world's great traders. Do you have a plans to implement social features you already mentioned, but such as copy trading or other users can follow?
Absolutely, we plan to do all of these things. The social features will actually roll out like this week, I think.
Oh,
And then That's pretty exciting. And then once we release the social features, we'll release copy trading. It's a very natural follow.
Oh yeah, sounds great. Yeah, we our friends also like to do those kind of features, so I just want to hear what you thought. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to touch on a more personal question to know about you as a human. So what's the kindest thing that you've ever done?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I went back to China to visit my grandfather. And one of my strongest memories of my grandfather is that he really liked to play computer solitaire. This is on like I think Windows 7 or Windows XP, like really really old computer, and he used the like built-in version of solitaire, and he played. And like a fun fact is that solitaire lets you choose a game number between 0 and like 1 million. And so he was just working through all of them like one at a time, like starting from 1, 2, 3, and then eventually to like 300,000. And like he had played like hundreds of thousands of these games. Like I remember reading his notebook that showed like all the numbers. I was like, wow, this is a lot. And at some point this computer sort of died, because it was a really old computer. It wasn't even running Windows 7 in 2024. And so my mom and dad purchased for him a new computer and had him like use that computer, and it had solitaire on it as well. And they bought some new versions of solitaire, but obviously they weren't compatible with the prior one, right? Like they didn't look the same. And when I saw him play it, he looked really sad. It clearly wasn't very familiar to him anymore. And so I actually asked ChatGPT like what to do here, right? And so it told me to use a flash drive and get the old version of solitaire from his old computer, and then to plug it into his new computer. And this way, by using compatibility mode, we could load the old executable onto the new machine, and everything would look exactly the same. And he was able to keep going, starting from like 300,000 or something. Just that moment brought me so much joy. Like it's 2 years ago, and I still remember every moment super vividly. And that was probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
That's very, very touching, like using technology to help your grandfather be joyful again. Yeah. So as we wrap up this podcast, is there any message you want to deliver to our Korean audience?
Absolutely. So in America, we know like that two countries exist, America and China. But I think that Korea is like a dramatically underrated nation. So I did math contests not just in college but also in high school and middle school. And one thing that was always amazing to me was that like I would look at the IMO rankings, which are like the International Math Olympiad, like it ranks the countries by math. And the US and China were always up there. But Korea has like been in the top 3 or 4 like for 9 of the last 10 years. That's amazing. Like I genuinely think Korea is like an incredible nation that the West really hasn't heard about. Like Korea is like an industrial superpower. The West wants to reindustrialize. Korea never really stopped, right? You guys have like the second most shipbuilding capacity in the world. You guys make RAM, which is like super important for artificial intelligence. K-pop, Singles Inferno, these things are all like globally recognized brands, all for a small nation of like 50 million people that is mostly like very, very mountainous. Like I genuinely think Korea is a success story people should like try to learn from, and it's just a really really wonderful country. I've been to Korea like 2 times in 2025, hopefully a few more times this year, and it has always been a wonderful wonderful place to be. And I think it's a really really slept on country. I think that people in the West should know about Korea, and thank you for all that you've done.
Well, thank you, Franklin, for acknowledging our country as that. I think our people will love you as well.
I
So,
hope so.
yeah, so that's about it, folks, for this podcast. So, thank you again, Franklin, for joining us for the podcast. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Calvin.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thank you, Franklin. Thank you, Ngi.